Hello, welcome to the European Open briefing for Friday, April the 21st. I'm Rafi Boyajian, currency analyst at XM.com, and we're going to be having a look at the latest developments in the currency markets today. So most major pairs are fairly steady this morning, despite that terrorist incident yesterday in Paris when a police officer was shot dead. The euro had actually risen to three-week high before the attack. It did fall rather sharply afterwards, but it quickly found support as the latest polls showed that the centrist candidate Emmanuel Macron has increased his lead in the French presidential race. The dollar is well, it's staying rather mixed. We had some comments from the U.S. Treasury Secretary yesterday, Steven Mnuchin, who said the tax cuts will come very soon. But although the dollar was already higher on the day yesterday, and it did increase those gains a little bit afterwards, but this morning it's mostly flat against the Japanese yen, and so is the pound, as investors await UK retail sales data later today, while the Canadian dollar is attempting to move away from yesterday's six-week lows against its US counterpart. Let's start now with the euro because that's the main focus in the financial markets today. Given that we've got the first round of the French presidential election this Sunday, the latest polls, according to Reuters, Emmanuel Macron is ahead 24%. Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader of the National Front Party, has actually lost some support. She's down at 21.5%. The conservative leader François Fillon is at 20%. He's slightly up, whereas the far left candidate Jean-Luc Mélenchon is also up at 19.5%. So we can see there's not a great deal difference among those four candidates. And so given that there's a big number of undecided voters, any two of them could get through to the second round, although investors are betting that Macron and Le Pen will go through, with Macron winning the second round. And also just to again mention that terrorist attack in central Paris last night, where an attacker shot dead a policeman as well as wounding two others before security officers shot the attacker dead. The euro had actually risen to three-week high 1.0777 before falling sharply there, before steadying around 1.0715. It's currently up slightly after we had some very strong French PMI data. Looking at the US dollar now against Japanese yen, the dollar has actually been rising over the past 2 days. It had a very poor start to the week, so it looks set to end the week on a slightly more positive note. We had the latest weekly jobless claims numbers yesterday, where the continued claims fell to 17-year low. That's a further indication that the US labor market is tightening. Also, in the Philly Fed's manufacturing index, that although it was actually slightly below expectations, it remained in positive territory for the 9th straight month, and the survey showed that manufacturing employment increased in April, so that was slightly positive for the dollar, but there was not as much of a reaction as you would have expected from comments by the U.S. Treasury Secretary yesterday. Steven Mnuchin said that the tax reforms will be coming very soon, and he also said that they're going to go ahead with the tax reforms with or without the healthcare bill. There was fears that the tax cuts may be delayed or because of the healthcare bill, because they were counting on the reductions in spending on health in order to finance the big tax cuts, but it looks like that's not going to be a factor there. And also, President Trump is due to sign executive orders today ordering the Treasury to find ways of reducing the tax burden and also ease regulation on banks. So all of that should have been much more positive on the dollar, but we're seeing the dollar hold around the 100, just about the 109 level against the yen. And that also comes despite the fact that we've got reduced geopolitical concerns now regarding North Korea and overall more upbeat risk sentiment this morning, but the dollar is against other, given that it's the dollar has actually been coming, well, the euro and the pound mainly have been doing better against the dollar. The dollar index is actually flat on the day. The pound is also mostly flat against the dollar. It's just above the 1.28 level. The latest polls in the UK show that Theresa May's Conservative Party is currently ahead with around 24 points over the main opposition party, Labour. And if this holds, it probably means that Conservatives will win a landslide victory at the June 8 elections, and this is seen as positive by the markets because it would create greater political certainty as well as give the Prime Minister a stronger negotiating hand when it enters talks with the EU over the Brexit terms. But in the meantime, investors will be eyeing the UK retail sales data that's due later today. And look now at the Canadian dollar, because the Canadian dollar did actually fall to a 6-week low yesterday of 1.3499. We had a big drop in oil prices on Wednesday after the US inventory data showed another rise in US production, and US crude stocks fell less than expected. And so and also just generally recent data shows that the supply glut in the oil market shows no sign of easing anytime soon. So that's why we had that big drop. US crude is currently trading back above the $50 a barrel level. There's been some support coming on growing signs from OPEC countries that they will most likely extend the current output deal for another 6 months when the current agreement ends in June. And also worth mentioning that we've got Canadian inflation data coming up later today. And also another factor that had been pressuring the loonie in recent days was criticism by President Trump about Canada's protectionist measures with its dairy industry that apparently is hurting US dairy farmers. That increased some tension about possible trade spat between the US and Canada. But the loonie has firmed a little bit this morning. Is currently trading at 1.3464. And looking now at today's economic calendar, we did have French and German flash PMIs. The French ones were stronger than expected. German ones were a bit more mixed. We've got Eurozone flash inflation, flash PMIs coming out shortly, as well as retail sales. So those will be watched closely very shortly. And later in the day, we've got Canadian inflation numbers coming up, as well as US flash manufacturing PMIs and existing home sales numbers. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.